it's Leonie from Frogfish Cards. Today I'm bringing you what I call a hidden card. It's a really cute little card that was shown to me many years ago, and I've decided to revisit it. Whereas the inner panel pulls out and reveals your greeting. It's just really quite sweet. So that's what we're going to be working on today. To do that, you are going to be requiring 3 pieces of Marina Mist, 2 of 5 3/4 by 4, and 1 of 5 by 3.5. You're going to require some DSP, 2 pieces at 3 3/4 by 5.5, 2 pieces at 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, 1 piece at 5 by 3 1/4, and 1 piece at 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. 3 pieces of Dapper Demon. 1 is at 3 by 3, 1 is at 3 1/2 by 2 1/2, and 1 is at 1 1/8 by 3. 2 pieces of Cherry Cobbler. 1 is at 3 by 3 and 1 is at 3 1/2 by 2 1/2. 1 piece of Whisper White, which is 1 inch by 5 inch, and 2 pieces of Pear Pizzazz, that is 3 inches by 3 inches. So to start with, we want a piece of Pear Pizzazz, a piece of the 3 inch by 3 inch Pear Pizzazz, the 2.5 inch by 3.5 inch Dapper Demon, the 1 1/8 inch by 3 inch Dapper Demon, and the Whisper White is what we're going to require to start with. So we're going to emboss these with silver embossing powder, and before you emboss, your fingers leave oil marks all over your cardstock. So when you've been handling them quite a bit, you need to emboss buddy, which takes away all that oil, and you don't get embossing powder sticking on something that you don't want it to adhere to. So it's best to wipe them all down with the embossing buddy. Now today we are using the Embellished Ornaments with the coinciding thinlits. So the thinlits that go and match that stamp set. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp one at a time and put the embossing powder on them, and then I'll heat them all at once. I'm not going to heat them until I've stamped all of the required stamp, so that it's like that. So when I've done that, I'll come back to you and show you the finished product. So once you've got them all stamped, you need to heat them with the heat gun. Just be careful when you're using the heat gun, because it's 10 times hotter than a hairdryer, and it can give you 3rd degree burns very easily. So keep your fingers well out of reach of the heat itself. And once it starts to shine, move the heat along, because if you overcook your powder, it'll just chip off, and that's not the effect that you're wanting. So you want to have a teardrop on your Dapper Demon, an oval on your Pear Pizzazz, 4 little ornament caps, and your verse that's going on the front of the card, which for me, I'm using Thinking of You at Christmas. Okay, now we need to get the big shot out, and we're going to use the rest of these pieces of cardstock, which are the Pear Pizzazz, Cherry Cobbler and the Dapper Demon. So I'm using the metallic plate. If you don't have the metallic plate, don't panic. You will be able to just take things off. So I'm cutting the teardrop out with the Cherry Cobbler, the teardrop out of the Cherry Cobbler, and the teardrop out of the Dapper Demon. You also want the outlining oval on the Cherry Cobbler and the filigree oval on the Pear Pizzazz. So it's the outlining teardrop on the Dapper Demon, the filigree teardrop on the Cherry Cobbler, the outlining oval on the Cherry Cobbler, and the filigree oval on the Pear Pizzazz. You also want to cut out your 4 little caps that go on these, and I find with this particular process you really should try and tape it, even though you've got the magnetic plate, which makes the dies adhere to the plate. I find with these little ones the magnet plays with them and they tend to twist, so you want to just tape them so they don't move from where you actually want them to cut. Otherwise you'll find them moving and you'll be doing it 100 times over. So it's just as easy to place a bit of tape on that situation, running it through the big shot. So I'll come back to you once I've got the rest of these little caps cut out, and we'll go on to the next process. So before I go much further, I also need to tell you that the 2 ornaments that we've embossed need to be cut out as well. So again, you're using the outside cutting edges for this application, making sure that they're evenly spaced around your ornaments with your magnetic plate, holding the thinlets in place. And again, you are running it through the big shots. It's just up a bit high. That'll do. When you're working with dies that are very intricate, this is the best tool. It takes all those little bits out in 1/3 of the time. So sometimes you might have to prick out a couple of stubborn, tiny little pieces, but it takes 90% of the stuff out, and it just makes it your job so much quicker. So I just love this little tool. It's called a die brush, Big Shot die brush. Now the trick with this tool is to not be heavy-handed with it. If you're heavy-handed with it, you'll rip your cardstock. It's just a light running over the top. If it's stubborn and they don't want to remove out of the spot, then just come back later with your pricker and remove them manually. But most of the time, 90% of them come out. So I just love this little tool for that. It just lessens the time so dramatically. Okay, so I'm just going to prick out the stubborn bits that are still in here, and I'll return to you shortly. Okie dokie, so now you will have 2 teardrop and 2 oval decorative ornaments and 1 teardrop and 1 oval plain ornament. So the plain ornament goes underneath the filigree ornament and adds a bit of character to those 2 ornaments. You also will be requiring 4 of these little caps, 2 10mm brads. I've got them as close to Marina Mist as possible, and 2, I've just cut out 2 scalloped circles. You can cut out whatever shape you like, but you'll need 2 of them to make your little tag that you pull your internal workings out of the middle of your card, like so. Okay, so I'm going to now adhere these ornaments to each other, putting aside the 2 that have been embossed with just a bit of glue. Normally I would use my thin glue for this application, but it's leaking and driving me crazy, so I'm just going to go very lightly with my normal glue and hope that I don't make too much of a mess. If you ever have an issue with any of your Stampin' Up products, just return them to your demonstrator, and she will then get in contact with Stampin' Up, and they will inform her what steps need to be taken for that product to be rectified. So don't ever think that if you've got a faulty product, because faulty products happen, that's just life, that you need to tolerate it. You can return them or have other means made for you from Stampin' Up. They're very generous there. I've never had an issue with anything. They've always been very kind and easy to talk to in having things rectified. I just haven't rang them yet about my fine tip glue, but I will get onto them and get that rectified. Just been a bit busy, which sometimes people are. Okay, so that's what you want it to end up looking like. So you have the 2 embossed ornaments and you have the 2 filigree ornaments. I'll put them aside for now We'll come back to them later. And we're going to start working on the actual card itself. So the back panel and the front panel, the two lining panels, so the back panel and the front panel, which are 5 3/4 by 4 inch, and the DSP is 3 3/4 by 5.5 inches, put to one side. We just want the center piece, that's the piece we're going to be working on first, the piece that is the internal workings that hides away, and that is, the Marina Mist is 5 by 3 3/4, and the DSP is 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, and the second piece that we are going, the third piece of DSP that we are going to be requiring for this is 2 2/3 by 4 1/4. Okay, so what we're going to do with all our DSP is curve off the corners. So every corner we want to just curve it off with a corner cutter, just like that. Now the central DSP is exactly the same DSP as the backing DSP, it's just that I'm using the reverse side. And that's all we're doing there at this stage. And then with Marina Mist, we're going to just ink the edges of the DSP. DSP has a white centre, and I don't like that. I find it tacky, I think it's unfinished, so I always ink the edges of my DSP. Everyone's different, but for me, the card is not finished until the DSP has been inked. So I'm just going to do that now, and then we'll start constructing this part of the card. Okay, so then we're going to start constructing this central piece, but I have yet to cut the corners off my Marina Mist, which I'm going to do now. Simple as that. And I'm going to adhere my paper to, or my DSP to the cardstock. Now when you're adhering the DSP onto the other side of your Marina Mist, make sure that your pattern is flowing the same way. Also, when you're doing the internal workings of this particular hidden card, you need to remember that it's got to slide in between the two outside pieces of cardstock. So you don't want to mount anything, you don't want to dimensional anything within this internal workings, because otherwise you won't be able to close it. It'll constantly get jammed, and then that takes the fun away from this whole application. So You also need to put these little circles on that I was talking about before, the scalloped circles I've used, and you're just placing them underneath your DSP. And I'm actually going to use the stripe side. Like so. Then you just turn it over, and again, a bit of glue, and place it under the DSP. Make sure that they match up, like so. And that's that. So when it's finished, that little tag that you require to be able to pull the internal workings out is on the bottom of your card, and you can tell that because your pattern will be upright. So your pattern will be the right way up, and it's on the bottom right hand corner of the right hand corner of the card. So then we're placing pardon me, the embossed tear shape ornament in that corner. Making sure you have plenty of glue. And also making sure that you leave enough room to be able to pierce a hole in this section here for the brad to go through. Then I'm going to emboss the next saying, which is, or next verse, which is this one here. With loving wishes for you, bright and beautiful season. For a bright and beautiful season, not for you. With loving wishes for a bright and beautiful season. And we're just going to emboss that right here. Just like that. Now I have a crocodile. Not everyone would have one of these. Any sort of hole punching tool would suffice. You want to put it about 1/8 of an inch in and about halfway between the two edges of your card. Then pierce a hole. Just like that. Okay. So now we're going to go to the external front section of the card only. Oh, stop. So with the front, we are not rounding the edges of the Marina Mist and the larger piece of DSP. We are only rounding the edges of the smaller piece of DSP. And again, we're inking the DSP. with Marina Mist. Okay, so then we're just going to adhere it to the cardstock. Making sure that you have a nice even border of Marina Mist around your DSP. I like about 1/8 of an inch. Everybody is a bit to their own taste, but that's what I like. Again, making sure that your pattern runs true. So you want to place it over. So that when you pull your inner panel out, it is the same direction with your outer panel. Now we're going to use our other 3 ornaments. So the embossed one, and the oval filigree one, we are going to adhere straight to the cardstock. I'm just looking at my sample, making sure I'm doing this the way I want to. Keeping it within this central piece of DSP. It doesn't matter if it hangs over the bottom. Just on the outside edges, you want it to stay central to this piece of DSP, not coming over to the second piece, just staying on the central piece. Then we're using the embossed oval. Then with the second oval, which is the filigree one, we are going to use dimensionals. Oh. Okay. And then you just want to place it in the middle, but I also don't want all the bottom of my ornaments at the same level. So this one's up high and this one's down low, so I want this one to sort of be placed in between those two. Like so. Now we're going to work on the label. Again, I'm curving off those edges. Now just be careful when you curve off something that's this tiny. You place it in crooked and it'll cut crooked, and then there's no coming back from it. You need to do it all over again. So you need to make sure it's hard up against the right angled edge so that you get a nice even rounded cut like that. And then I just need a piece of, okay, so it's embossed on Dapper Demon, so with Marina Mist, I'm just going to cut out a piece at 1 1/4 inch by 3 1/4 inch. So it'll be 1 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch. And I'm going to dimensional the Dapper Demon to the Marina Mist. Removing the wax paper off the back to reveal the sticky surface, and then making sure that it is centrally placed within your Marina Mist. Just like that. Again, we're going to put some dimensionals on our tag. Now, your oval ornament is already dimensional, and your tag is going to sit over the top of that ornament. So you only need to put dimensionals on the back end of it. You can glue it to adhere to the ornament so that it sits at the same height. So in order for me to do that, I tend to fold it down in the way that I wanted it to be positioned, put on my dimensionals, and then glue the top corner so that it will adhere to the oval filigree ornament. And you just want to place it so that it's got a nice thin border around your tag, and that's that. So now we're going to be taking our second piece of Marina Mist cardstock, and we're going to be punching holes in both ends of that cardstock. So in the center of the cardstock and 1/8 of an inch in. On both ends. Do not attach your DSP until the very last process on the back side of this cardstock. So then you would get your brads, and you're putting it through your central workings and through the back panel of your cardstock, making sure that when you open your brad that it is horizontal to the outside edge of your cardstock, and place the other one in the other end. Making sure that they're nice and horizontal. Now I like to put plenty of glue on these before I place the DSP on there. We also need to ink around the outside edge of the DSP with your Marina Mist. And then we're adhering it to the cardstock. Now this DSP is a Stampin' Up DSP, but it's from quite a few seasons ago. So, but I'm sure that the latest Christmas paper that's going to become available will be just as nice.